Welcome to this edition of Diligence Inside America's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter, and I'll be your host for today's show. Today, we're going to talk about the most recent updates from the Director Confidence Index and the Corporate Sentiment Tracker. These are two methods that we keep track of what's happening in the corporate world and in corporate boardrooms. Joining me are two people that are experts in this area. And first, let me welcome Melanie Nolen, who's the research editor for Corporate Board Member. Welcome, Melanie.
Thank you, TK. Happy to be here.
And also joining us is Dottie Schindlinger, who's the executive director of the Diligent Institute. Welcome back, Dottie.
Thanks so much, TK. Great to be back with you.
So, Melanie, we're gonna start with you. We're gonna start with the Board Confidence Index. So, I think we better start by educating our viewers and reminding them exactly what the Board Confidence Index is.
The Director Confidence Index is really a monthly flash poll of U.S. public company board members. So every month we ask them to rate their assessment of business conditions and then also project what they expect those to be 12 months from now. Based on those assessments, then we ask them to also project their company's revenues, profits, and capital expenditures. So those questions form the basis of the index, and we ask the very exact same questions month after month to see how their confidence in the conditions are changing. To those, we then add topics of interest. What we hear are top of mind for boards, from labor shortages, supply chains, ESG, changing laws and regulations. Basically, what are they talking about in the boardroom? What are they seeing? What are they discussing? So we want an overview of what's happening in the boardroom. That's what we do every month, and that forms the Director Confidence Index.
So one of the reasons I wanted to sort of look at the index today was because of the trend line that I've been seeing. So why don't you share with our audience what the most recent results show?
Well, the latest results aren't all that positive. The trend line has been trending down for several months now. Right now, it's at the lowest on record, which we've been fielding for a little over a year now, and it's the lowest that it's been. And that says a lot, because when we started this was pre-vaccines, where we didn't know where we were going with the pandemic. And right now, their assessment of what the future is going to be like, or what 2022, I should say, will be like, is a little grimmer than it was even back then. So that's what we're seeing with the latest reading of the index.
So I know you get some comments from individual directors. What sort of are they saying?
The concerns right now, well, there's many concerns right now, but I think the top concern, no doubt, is inflation. Then, of course, you have the labor shortages, supply chain disruptions. Those are definitely top of mind as well. Directors are saying they're keeping a very close eye on what develops in Washington, changing regulations, increased taxes, interest rates, rising wages across the board. And of course, COVID isn't necessarily 100% behind us either. So they're looking at how do you balance the return to the office, keep employees safe, and then also to attract new talent. I think there's a push or request for more remote work. So how do you bundle all that in and continue with your strategy, considering how strong demand is right now? Companies need the talent to fill that. And I think that's where their concerns are. How do we get there?
Yeah. I know your sister company, Chief Executive, does a CEO Confidence Index. How is that is that mirroring the board members' feelings, or is it different?
It's been really interesting to see them side by side. They're fairly trending in the same manner. In fact, when we started, CEO confidence was always slightly higher than director confidence, which we assumed was normal. CEOs are usually a little bit more bullish than directors. But now it's taken a little bit of a reverse, where the director confidence is slightly below that of CEOs, and it has been trending down since spring. I think there was a little bit of an uptick on both sides in the spring when people thought, okay, we've got the vaccines rolling out, we're about to return to the office. And then come June, July, the Delta variant surges hit, and confidence has been declining since then. But seeing them side by side, they're very much in tune with one another.
Yeah, it's tough to get excited when you can go out every day and see the impact of the talent shortage and the labor shortage. It's not a surprise that people are not bullish about getting qualified people back into those slots. So Dottie, we're going to jump to you now, and we're going to talk about the corporate sentiment tracker. And I think we'll take the same path and ask you first to explain to our audience or remind them what the corporate sentiment tracker is.
Yeah, thanks, TK. And before I start to talk about that, I do want to just say we have been so delighted to have this great partnership with Melanie and her team at Corporate Board Member working on the Director Confidence Index each month. And it's been great to then begin to bring in some of the data from the tool that we created this year called the Corporate Sentiment Tracker. What that is basically an AI-fueled engine that is scraping 56,000, actually a little more than that, sources of English language news to see what kinds of information is coming up out of the hearts and minds and mouths of corporate leaders across the world. So it's really tracking to see what are the topics on their minds. And then it also provides a sentiment score. So it kind of tries to assess, are they talking about those terms in positive ways or negative ways? The whole tool is leveraging Diligent's compensation and governance intel suite. And so this is a really powerful engine that allows companies to get insight into how they're doing, vis-a-vis their peers or their competitors. How is their industry trending? And we're using it to kind of give this top level bird's eye view of what are the themes coming up for boards and for corporate leaders, C-suite executives all around the world. So we also are kind of using this tool to give us a rolling 1-year retrospective. So you can go into the tool, you can see what are the trending terms today. So what we kind of call nowcasting, what's happening right now. And then you can play with the filters and go back in time 365 days and see how things have been changing over time. So it gives you a really interesting view.
So I'm curious on the sentiment tracker, what the results show. And is there a way to compare it to the confidence index, or is it sort of more volatile in the sense that the conditions are always changing?
Yeah, it's a great question. We actually do compare it each month to the Director Confidence Index, really to kind of give us some additional insight into what's happening in the Director Confidence Index. But you're right to say that the Corporate Sentiment Tracker does show a lot more volatility. And partly that's because it's not asking directors to predict where they're going to be 6 months or a year from now. It's actually looking at how things are happening right now. So you're going to see a lot more volatility. It's looking to see what are they talking about generally. So in some cases, those terms are positive or negative. And what's really interesting is that the same term over time has trended both positive and negative. A good example would be the word future, which has topped the charts for quite a long time in the Corporate Sentiment Tracker. And in some cases, it's been trending very positively. To echo what Melanie was saying a moment ago, back in the spring, there was this feeling of sort of ebullience out there that we were going to be returning to offices and getting beyond this pandemic. The word future looked very bright. That was trending very positively. But come a little bit later in the summer, when the Delta variant of COVID began to spread and we started to see shutdowns happening again, the word future was still topping the list, but it was now trending very negatively. But we do like to compare it with the Director Confidence Index to give us that additional insight into why we're seeing the results in the Director Confidence Index that we're seeing.
And you also get some feedback from individual directors. So what are you seeing that's related to the sentiment tracker?
Yeah, so we do spend a lot of time speaking with corporate directors in a whole host of ways. I mean, the tracker is not looking specifically at what individuals are, it does look at what individuals are saying in the press, but we then, really have other ways to follow up with directors and find out what they're thinking. Right now, the tracker is reading only 50% positive. And for the last 6 months or so, it's normally been between 55% and 65% positive. So, it really has been trending down, which is following following what's happening in the Director Confidence Index. And some of the terms that people are really concerned about, obviously, COVID continues to dominate the cycle. But right now, one of the big terms we're seeing is inflation. Again, I think that echoes very much what we're seeing in the Director Confidence Index results. Inflation is very much on people's minds.
This is fascinating. And again, when I saw the results of both, I thought it was a perfect time for us to give an update to our audience. It's something that I want to revisit, on a regular basis. So I'm hoping that you ladies will be available so I can certainly do that and give our audience a feel for sort of, again, that confidence and sentiment going forward. But let me ask a question. Where can people get a copy? And Dottie, I'll start with you. Where can somebody see and sort of follow the sentiment tracker?
Yeah, if they come to our website, which is diligentinstitute.com, you'll see there's a navigation button that says Sentiment Tracker right at the top. So it's diligentinstitute.com, and then just click right on Sentiment Tracker and you can see the current results.
And I assume since we do the confidence index together with corporate board member, that's also available at the Diligent site. And Melanie, how about from corporate board members' perspective?
Same here. Everything is still available on the website, boardmember.com. It's usually on our homepage on a sidebar, or there's a link for the research where you can access all previous months and the reasons why the index was what it was.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you both for taking the time. I really appreciate that we get the opportunity to cover these topics on the show. So appreciate your efforts.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, TK.
And that will conclude this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week when we take another look at a critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.